Hi, my name is Ashok Krish. I head the digital workplace unit for Tata Consultancy Services globally. My work involves the intersection of the infrastructure, applications, and the employee experience aspect of the future of work. And as you might imagine, my team has been pretty busy over the last 1 year helping Fortune 1000 customers really think about the future of work during these challenging times. Right. So if you really think about the first question, which is what kind of trends are you seeing in 2021 in the context of the workplace? I'll essentially talk about two critical things. One is the fact that we're essentially now uh, in a world where you need persona-centric, anytime, anywhere, cloud-powered workplaces, right? So this idea that you are now the workplace, not the physical office. You being the workplace essentially means that your workplace travels with you in a medium of your choice, at respecting your privacy, your work-life balance, and so on, and is able to enable you to be productive regardless of wherever you are. You could be a frontline employee, you could be an employee working remotely, or you could be an employee working in an office, and so on. So you still have access to all of your documents in a secure way. You have access to computing. You have access to the security tools, you have access to collaboration tools, and so on, regardless of device, regardless of where you are, right? So this is essentially number one, right? The second larger trend that I see is that the technology investments in frontline employee technology is drastically increasing, and I see this across industries. The pandemic has actually sort of demonstrated the criticality of your frontline workforce. Most IT and technology investments in the last couple of decades have largely been focused on the knowledge worker aspect of the workplace. Frontline workers have always been underserved. And so frontline technology, especially as we head towards future organizations where most of your employees who are on site will be frontline and they will be supported virtually by an extended remote kind of a workplace, will require the frontline employees to have access to technology that allows them to collaborate, that allows them to share knowledge, that allows them to make decisions and access expertise on the go, right? So this is obviously number two. And the third larger trend, and I don't want to include it as a technology-centric trend, but this historically, the way we managed workplaces is that there was an IT aspect of it, the desktops, the laptops, the data center, the communication tools, the routers and the telephony and so on, the conference rooms and so on. Then you had the administrative facilities, the climate control, the cooling, the building facilities, the access control, the physical security, and those aspects of it. And you obviously had HR and financial systems and that aspect of the workplace stack, if you think about it, right? Each of these was necessarily a silo because they all worked on different kinds of technologies at different levels of maturity. Some were not connected to each other, and so on, right? What's happening now is that they're all converging on the cloud, right? So as your HR, administration, and IT services converge on the cloud, companies are thinking fundamentally differently about IT services, about the workplace essentially now being a single cloud stack that I can think in terms of an agile DevOps culture, right? So I can think more in terms of having user stories that cut across these, and I'm able to then drive changes, small incremental changes that are high impact across the administration, finance, and the IT services stack, as opposed to thinking of these as very siloed segments of the workplace, right? So these are the three kinds of broad changes that I see, trends that I see. So the second question on how can technology support the workforce of the future? What's coming after video chat, which is essentially what we're doing now, and cloud-based productivity tools and so on, right? So I think I see this as two or three waves. I think the first wave is essentially going to be the ability for your video chat and this collaboration canvas to actually become the canvas of employee experience, meaning that your other IT systems, your HR systems, your ERP systems will all start to come into your collaboration canvas. That I think is the immediate, very short-term sort of trend that I see as you look to create workplace experiences that are low friction and high productivity. So that's clearly number one, right? The next step of this is what you add to this is as AI matures and cognitive capabilities mature, you're going to add AI that will augment things like knowledge management, the ability to enable better, more seamless collaboration, to measure behaviors, to locate expertise, to locate content, to also provide automated do-it-yourself support, right? So I think the second wave literally will be the rise of AI in its ability to sit on top, plug into your collaboration ecosystem and all of your business applications and be able to do this, right? And the third wave is what I see as the rise of more immersive collaboration technologies such as augmented and virtual reality, right? As someone who is a very, very regular gamer on virtual reality headsets, I can tell you that the consumer grade technology is already there. And it's only a matter of time before it becomes mainstream. To be honest, I think amongst industries like energy, resources, mining, travel, manufacturing and so on, the use of advanced virtual reality headsets is already underway. Right now, the price point is still expensive, but to really make it to the wider enterprise where one of us could just put on a light VR headset and have a more immersive, rich virtual meeting is not too far away. And I think that's basically the next step. And clearly the rise of augmented reality technologies for frontline workforce to make their jobs a lot more easier to train, easier to sort of continuously improve, and also scale their capacity with expertise remotely using information that you can then pipe in front of their eyes is going to be very, very crucial as we go forward, right? So the third question around what's the future of collaboration itself? In my opinion, the future of collaboration is fundamentally a transformation of culture to what we call working out loud. Right. So when we were working only in physical offices, collaboration was implicit, and we naturally worked out loud because we knew what others were doing. We had conversations with them at the water cooler. We had meetings where we had face-to-face. We shared body language cues and so on. So a lot of ambient awareness was created in the physical workplace, which we took for granted. As we move to a permanent hybrid way of working, your remote workforce now needs to deliberately work out loud, continuously share what they're doing in order to create the same kinds of serendipitous exchanges that were natural in the physical workplace, if you will. And I think technology will need to broker those serendipitous exchanges in the digital way of working, in the virtual way of working. And I think human resources and other departments will need to change the nature of employee engagement to be more continuous, to be more real time, to share more information with employees, to arm them with more data, and also use what we call a digital quantified self as a way of measuring what you're productive about and what you're not productive about, and so on, right? So this is the change in collaboration culture itself that I see as the future in terms of a near-term change in culture in the workplace. So the next question about what is the definition of a smart work? How do you define smart work in the post-COVID era? So clearly, I think when you think about the physical workplace and the 100-year history that it has since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, there are clearly some advantages and disadvantages. And I think the fact that most companies have been successful at adapting to remote work essentially means that there were problems in the physical way of work. So to really simplify this in a very dead simple way, I think the in-person workplace was great for co-located collaboration. And it was not so great for a spectrum of individual productivity. Offices were great for certain kinds of productivity, but not for all kinds of productivity. They also were not flexible. They were very urban-centric. And therefore, talent naturally was not very diverse in the physical workplace. Now, what we've learned in the 1 year is that if you have a strategy where you can hire anywhere, and work remotely and work in a hybrid model, it essentially means that you can tap into the human cloud, borderless talent. The idea that you can build teams with the best talent anywhere in the world, right? So therefore, naturally means that you have an opportunity to create more diverse teams. And again, research has proven that more diverse teams are actually more successful in most teams. They're more innovative. They deal with crises better because they have a wider range of shared experiences. diversity of experiences and so on, right? And also you have an opportunity to offer flexible ways of working, right? So in the office, everybody had to come in the morning and leave in the evening. In a remote work, presenteeism is not what defines work, it's outcomes, right? So there may be people who are immensely productive, in the middle of the night and they finish some work, but they're actually not available during the day. And again, when you think about in many parts of the world, having a flexible remote way of working also enables a greater number of women employees to continue to contribute and grow into leadership positions, as they don't have to take a break sometimes for family and so on, right? So this is clearly a huge opportunity. And we're also seeing an opportunity to de-urbanize a lot of work. If many of your employees can work from wherever they are, they don't need to come into cities and essentially live in expensive, high cost, very small, houses in cities like San Francisco or in Paris or London and so on. This essentially means that you have an opportunity to truly create a new kind of organization. And what that actually means is that the idea of smart work in this new world, and I'll simplify it this way. So historically, if you have to manage a project, you needed to define a plan, which therefore meant you needed to know what tasks you have to complete. You needed to know what skills you needed, and therefore look at your limited pool of talent that you have. You needed to figure out how long it's going to take. You needed to figure out how you're going to divide it across time zones, especially if you're a global organization, and so on, right? So, but in the new world, you'll add one more variable, which is this idea of essentially adding co-location as a factor. What it means is that the new way of smart work is not only figuring out what to do, figuring out the MVP in an agile manner, finding out skills in a globally distributed talent pool. And once you have a distributed talent pool, your way of thinking about time zones fundamentally changes. But what it also means is that you need to decide, when are you most productive in co-locating, and when are you most productive when working remotely, which means that a lot of new thinking will have to come in terms of figuring out that this is a project that during the brainstorming and creative phase, I need to bring people together locally as much as possible, right? Because face-to-face collaboration is very, very useful, and that's what we've learned from the physical workplace. But where I need individuals to be collaborative or individuals to be productive, individually productive, I'm better off giving them their space, going back to their, wherever they work remotely, and be able to work at their own styles, in their own flexible way to deliver what is required in a meaningful way, right? So smart work in the sense of the future is fundamentally going to be the ability to successfully navigate hybrid organizations and hybrid teams, and being flexible about when you're going to co-locate and when you're going to be remote. And the companies that kind of crack that will significantly increase their throughput compared to companies that either do only in-person or only remote kind of collaboration. I think ultimately hybrid is indeed the future, right? And so to the last question, and this is often a question I get asked by a lot of CTOs and also chief operating officers and research officers in many organizations, about how you can drive creativity in a remote or a hybrid kind of a work environment, right? Creativity and innovation. And we've always understood innovation as emerging from ideas bubbling together and people being able to brainstorm and whiteboard in a live setting and so on, right? So I think many of the ingredients that I spoke about in previous questions are all important, right? Ultimately, for you to have a culture of creativity and innovation in a remote work environment, you need what I call engineered serendipity. So let me explain what engineered serendipity means. Serendipity naturally happens in the physical workplace, right? People who are innovative and people who are networkers often get together, and ideas from one place percolate into another person via these people who are good networkers, and that's how innovation actually tends to happen, right? So in a remote world, you have to do this deliberately because we're all separate, right? So you have to create mechanisms by which people discover each other, ideas discover each other, problems discover each other more deliberately, right? And this therefore requires the other thing that I call digital nudging. Digital nudging is the use of technology to target a useful, actionable piece of information to an individual, highly personalized. And the nudging could actually be related to security compliance or wellness or to do with anything basic, right? Fill your timesheet and so on. But the nudging could also be related to innovation, right? So if someone has a great idea that you believe this needs to be seen by someone here, you could ultimately use technology and AI and big data to target information selectively to people to nudge them to be more innovative and collaborative, right? Ultimately, creativity comes from visibility to problems, right? So the more visibility and ambient awareness you create more opportunities for people to be creative. The second thing is that creativity only comes when there are constraints, and people should know what those constraints are, right? And the third thing is that you should have a culture where your employees are empowered, right, and encouraged, right? Meaning that if I have visibility to problems and I come up with a solution, what are my incentives to take it forward, right? What are the support structures where I can find fellow employees, come together, solve a problem together, and then take it to the next level, get visibility, get funding, and so on. So the structures of innovation are always important. So the way I would say it, if you have a rich and vibrant creativity and innovation culture in your organization, it's then therefore matter of adapting that to the digital mechanism, doing a few things more deliberately so that the culture still stays vibrant, right? You can't fix a culture problem by simply using technology and collaboration and video chat and webinars and idea generation platforms and voting platforms and so on. That will not fix the problem. You still need to fix the culture, but it has to do with creatively being able to adapt it, using the technology that you have today, using the attention span challenges that we have, and the fact that we have a work-life balance that straddles home and work and so on, and the fact that we're not seeing face-to-face, and make the best out of those limitations to get innovation, the innovation engine going. As someone once said, innovation is the ability to turn invention to invoices, and that has to be the focus of the organization. Thank you.